Penguin Random House Audio presents The Price of Admission: How America's Ruling Class Buys Its Way into Elite Colleges and Who Gets Left Outside the Gates, by Daniel Golden. Read for you by Nancy Linari. For my family. A note on academic records. Since college admissions offices pay considerable attention to applicants' SAT scores, this book does too. The purpose of revealing students' test scores, as well as high school grades and class ranks, is not to embarrass individuals who fall below the norms of the colleges they attend, but to document the extent of admissions preferences for alumni children and other favored groups. Whenever possible, SAT scores used in this book were confirmed by documents or sources besides the students themselves. The book takes no position in the long-running controversy over whether SAT scores are a useful way to evaluate college applicants and predict future achievement. If, as some critics contend, the SAT is culturally biased in favor of white and wealthy students, then the admission of privileged applicants into elite colleges, despite subpar scores, represents an even greater inequity than would appear on the surface. Private high schools, which many of the college applicants described in this book attended, do not formally rank students. However, many prep schools induct students with the best grade point averages, usually the top 20%, into an organization called the Cum Laude Society, which is roughly comparable to the National Honor Society. Hence, this book frequently uses cum laude status as a mark of whether college applicants ranked in the top fifth of their prep school class. Introduction. The Tennessee Waltz. The United States would never develop an aristocracy, Alexis de Tocqueville declared in his classic 1835 study, Democracy in America. The fledgling democracy, he wrote, lacked primogeniture, the European custom of parents leaving all their wealth to their firstborn son. Without that practice, family fortunes in America would be divided among multiple descendants and gradually dwindle to nothing. But the great French historian underestimated the ingenuity of America's upper classes, which have all too often enhanced their wealth and power across generations. Elite families, it turned out, didn't need primogeniture. They developed an indirect method of preserving their status: college admissions. Despite the popular notion that top colleges foster the American dream of upward mobility and equal opportunity, the truth is quite different. While only a handful of low-income students penetrate the campus gates, admissions policies channel the children of the privileged into premier colleges, paving their way into leadership positions in business and government. Even without primogeniture, the firstborn sons of former Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist and former Vice President Al Gore could count on a valuable inheritance: easy entry to America's foremost universities. Although their fathers are political foes, William Harrison Frist, Jr. and Albert Gore III have a great deal in common. Both bear the full names of their famous fathers, along with the pressure of public expectations and media scrutiny. Both have Tennessee roots, but attended expensive Washington private high schools that catered to children of power. Both are stocky and played the same position, center, on their prep school football teams. Both were middling students who preferred partying to homework and the company of jocks to scholars. Their academic records, and in the teenage Albert Gore III's case, brushes with authority, would ordinarily have destined them for second-tier colleges. Yet both were admitted ahead of thousands of stellar candidates to their first and only choices, two of the nation's best and most selective universities: Frist to Princeton and Gore to Harvard, where their fathers had gone before them. The two Tennesseans waltzed into the Ivy League less on their own merit than on the basis of their paternal pedigrees. Princeton accepted Harrison Frist not because it believed in his intellectual potential, but because his family had lavished tens of millions of dollars on a new student center, and his father was both a national figure and a former trustee of the university. In fact, Princeton's admissions staff gave Harrison the lowest ranking on its scale for evaluating applicants' academic credentials. Albert Gore III applied to Harvard in the fall of 2000. America's most prestigious university wouldn't pass up the son of an alumnus and former member of its board of overseers, who stood several hundred disputed Florida votes away from being president of the United States. Once enrolled in these premier universities, the two youths hardly distinguished themselves. Harrison may be best known at Princeton for joining a rowdy, hard-drinking social club, and both were arrested on substance abuse charges. If they appeared not to value an elite college education, it may be because they didn't earn their admission. It was delivered to them as a birthright. Said Brandon Perry, a high school and college classmate of Frist's, "I don't think anyone ever doubted Harrison would get into Princeton." The Ivy League's embrace of the sons of Bill Frist and Al Gore underscores a reality elite universities pretend doesn't exist: that money and connections are increasingly tainting college admissions, undermining both its credibility and value to American democracy. In a 1997 article, "The Pitfalls of a Pure Meritocracy," a Harvard senior admissions officer named David Evans portrayed the admissions process as such universities want it to be seen: wise graybeards assembling a talented freshman class of all viewpoints and backgrounds. Subjective evaluations giving some bearing to applicants' personal qualities, he argued, are far superior to a strictly merit-based system. To explain why these universities often pass over top candidates, high school valedictorians, students with perfect SAT scores, and the like, for seemingly lesser applicants, Evans compared a college to a symphony orchestra. Just as an orchestra cannot be composed solely of violinists, he argued, so a college should be a symbiotic whole, where the poet converses with the scientist and the conservative philosopher debates topics with the liberal activist. This appealing vision permeates the public perception of admissions and almost all of the dozens of books and thousands of newspaper and magazine articles written about the process. It provides a convenient excuse for arbitrary decisions. Asked why it rejected a student, a college can say that he or she looked wonderful on paper but didn't fit into the mix. The image of a fair but fickle process also pumps up the applicant pool. Every year, hoping against hope that they might be the right match, hundreds of thousands of high school seniors with impeccable academic records seek admission to ultra-exclusive colleges that take fewer than 1 in 5 candidates, while their parents spend millions of dollars they can ill afford for tutors, test prep classes, extracurricular activities, or fancy private schools to help beat the odds. But this version of college admissions is fundamentally deceptive, as the orchestra analogy unwittingly reveals. To assemble its diverse array of musicians, an orchestra typically picks the best players on each instrument through blind auditions, eliminating any hint of favoritism. Imagine if the New York Philharmonic adopted the same selection criteria as Harvard, Yale, or Stanford. It would turn down a top violinist with a sublime sound in favor of a second-rate one with a screeching bow because his father had played in the orchestra himself, had endowed a rehearsal space, or was expected to do so once his son was chosen, was a famous screen actor, or controlled federal appropriations for the art.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?